Uh, a few years ago, they named a street for me, Chet Atkins Street down here a couple of blocks, and I don't pass by that when I come to work. I come in from this way, so I don't see it. But I get on it every once in a while. It's about 4 blocks long. And I always think, wouldn't it be terrible if I had a wreck and got killed on Chet Atkins Street? So I try to keep the place cleaned up and keep all the dogs off of it and everything. But it's really nice. I don't think much about it when I see Johnny Cash Boulevard and Roy Acuff Street and all that. But with my name on it, that's kind of nice because I'm just a guitar player. I've never been a big star or anything. I'm just a semi-well-known person, you know.
Well, I think this is by far one of the understatement in this day. Yeah. Well, as I said, I mean, it seems to be very hard to to find out where to start and where to stop. But maybe if we started at the point when you took over production here around '57, I guess maybe. What was your attitude which made it so successful for you to produce?
I started producing, I suppose it was about 55 or 6, a little bit. Mr. Scholes signed up Elvis Presley and became a big man in the company, and he started getting promotions, and sometimes he was busy and he couldn't come down from New York, and at the time we didn't have studios in Nashville, so he'd call me and say, go in with Johnny and Jack and cover Sincerely, or some song that was popular in the pop field. We'd cover it with a country artist, and so I would do that, and I'd always had worked with him for several years. He'd call me and say, hire some singers. We did that with Elvis, hire a bass player and a drummer, and we're going to make some records, and then I'd kind of conduct the sessions. So about 57, I went on the payroll as a producer for the company, and they had built a studio in Nashville about 54 or 5. And I had a lot of success, mainly because I'm a guitarist, and I could always make more money playing guitar. My album sales were just selling all over the world. So I made a lot of money out of that, and still do well from those albums and the newer ones I'm making. So the producing records was kind of a sideline, but I fell into it, as I said, because he got promotions, and it was pretty easy to make hits because I had a roster of fine artists that he had already collected. And then gradually I dropped some and added other artists, and had a lot of success after a while. And once I got a couple of hits under my belt, which were Old Lonesome Me by Don Gibson and I Can't Stop Loving You, then after that we just had hit after hit. It seemed like most every artist who was on the roster had a hit eventually. And it was easy in those days. We recorded at first on mono prior to 1958. After 1958, we went to stereo, and that still was not much work because it's just 2-track tape. And we mixed the stereo on the board, and it went direct to tape. And then they started with 3-track, and then 4-track, and then 8-track, and 16, and 24, and I don't know where it will end. And that's when it became work, when singers could come in and say, I want to sing that line again. And so that became work, so I had to drop a lot of artists. As a producer, I'd been producing all these people, so I hired other people to produce, and it went all right. And I started playing concerts, playing guitar, and I was young and I could do that. And by, the stress kind of got to me, and I got sick in 1972 or 3, and so and my boss died. Mr. Scholes died in '68. So when he died, I started backing out because I'd always just worked for him. I didn't work for RCA. So I started backing out, hiring new people to handle all the chores, and I got out officially in 1980 and went on Columbia Records, Columbia Sony, and been doing great ever since. More relaxed and haven't been sick too many times from stress. But you know, when you are a record producer, the artist look on you as a father figure. You're their psychologist, you're their father, you're their doctor, you're everything, and they come to you with all their problems. And I'm a sensitive person, and it was tough for me to not take those problems home with me at night. So I got out of that. I don't produce anyone now. Don't want to. No, I couldn't do it anyway. It's changed so much. So I just play the guitar and make my own records and play a little golf and have fun, play a few shows, so on.
Mm-hmm. Were there?
Been there and bought some of those effects at the show. I guess we're back recording again.
When you try to remember when it started, I mean, I think you made some distinctive points in production, you know, which made it so worthwhile also for your boss also to offer you, you know, to take over basically like that.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you made different?
When I started working with Mr. Scholes, it was 1947, late 47, when I recorded my first session for him as a guitarist. And right after that, a recording ban was threatened by the Musicians Union. And there had been one during the war. And so RCA decided to stockpile a bunch of masters in case there was a recording ban. So I knew that, and I called him in New York and asked him if I could come up and be side man on some records, play background, and he said yes. So I went up and stayed 2 or 3 months. And right away, I started telling everybody else what to do, because he had New York musicians, mostly legit, and they didn't know anything about playing country music. So I would tell them what to play, and I guess he saw some quality there. And then I'd lead the sessions, but I've always been that way. I got fired a lot from radio stations and things because I was always telling people what to do, was because I had a little better music education than they had. You know, these country boys maybe knew 3 chords and I knew 4 or 5, so I knew a little more than they did. So I fit right in, I guess, he thought, as a producer, but he tried, I remember him trying some other people as his assistant, and they didn't work out. And that was in New York. And so he started talking. He'd come down here and record, and I'd meet him in Chicago, and I'd go to New York and Atlanta and various places and take musicians. So he started talking about building a studio in Nashville and having me run it. And as I say, that happened about 1954 or 5. I don't remember when it was, but I worked freelance at first, $75 a week, and I'd just do things for him when he would call me. And then when I went on the payroll, they paid me $7,500 a year, and I was glad to get it. And so then when I had a few hits, I'd call them, told them I had to have more money. And they said, "What do you want?" I said, "I want $30,000 a year." "Sorry, we can't do that." So they came down and said, "Well, it's been nice working with you." And I said, "Yeah, it sure has." I knew they'd give in, so they paid me the money I wanted, but I never did make any royalties off of all these hits, you see. Today, producers make almost as much as the artists. I never got any of that. We were just company producers, and every once in a while they'd try to work out a situation where we would get royalties on the hits we made, but it always amounted to nothing. The accountants would always get in there and figure out a way where you wouldn't make any money. And but they were nice to me, and I had my guitar records, and I was making sessions with other people, and they built a building up here, and Mr. Scholes saw that I owned a third of it. The studio, big studio they built here, an office building. So that's been worth as much probably as if I'd have gotten royalties. And so he was very nice to me in that respect. Mr. Scholes. It's Holes. His uncle invented the typewriter, the first workable typewriter, and threw away the money, I think, on women and song or whatever. But we'll talk about something else.
What I was aiming at was also a bit like a technical thing that I heard that you changed things in ways of recording as opposed to how it happened before.
Well, when I went to work for RCA, well, prior to working for RCA, I was had been into electronics. I've had my own studio for a long time and had been making some of my own solos at home in a little studio. And when I was a little kid, I built ham radios and crystal set radios and two tubers I built, but from a diagram. I'm not one of those great electronics people. But I was, and also my dad was a classical music teacher. I had been living down in Georgia and been around a lot of black blues singers and gospel singers, and I'd been around the gospel field a lot and religious music, so I had a lot to draw from and for arranging, and all the arrangements were done just around the piano. We'd gang around the piano, and Floyd Cramer would play piano, and people would make suggestions, and I would just sift the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. And electronically, I knew more than most people, I guess. I knew the capabilities of the equipment, the recording equipment, and the limiters and the microphones they used. And so that helped me somewhat. But as far as sounds and things, it was a collaboration thing. Owen Bradley was making some good records here, and we had a group called the Anita Kerr Singers who were really pop singers, but they enhanced country music when you put them in the background. And we had the German EMT echo units, which people still use here a lot, and I hired an engineer who tweaked those things and got them to sounding very well, and he found the dead spots and the reflective spots in the studio, and his name was Bill Porter. He was a great help to me. So I had help from a lot of people, and consequently we made a few hits there for a while.
Considering that you, as a musician, you have this incredible range, basically from covering any style of music, from classical over jazz to whatever. How did it occur that country became so important for you, or you became so important for country?
I could make a living better in country music in the South, where I'm from. I started out playing with a Dixieland band and with the country boys too, but I would play a staff guitar with a little orchestra on a radio station in Knoxville. And I'd play fiddle with the country boys. I'd play guitar with some of the country acts. So it was easier for me to make a living, and I had kind of a country aroma too, I guess. I was raised up in the country. I love country music. And it just evolved out of that. Nashville, some reason or other, I knew it was going to be the place to be. I never wanted to work on the road out here because those guys would go out for 2 or 3 months at a time on the road, play tours. And I had offers from a couple of the big artists to go out and do that. But I didn't do that. I came to Nashville finally on my own terms. I came here in 1950, and I called Fred Rose, who was deserves a lot of credit for this town. He was an old pop songwriter who wrote a lot of hits for Gene Autry. He's the guy that half wrote most of Hank Williams' songs. Great man. And so I called him. I was in Springfield, Missouri, and I called and I said, if I come down, will you use me on some sessions? And he said, sure. He was producing for MGM and some people around. And by that time, 1950, there was one studio here. So I came down and just worked on the radio and worked recording sessions, so I didn't have to go on the road. And so I never did go on any long tours out of here, except when we went to England or Europe or South Africa and Japan. I went over there and toured once for a month.